Hey Airchat, I wanted to start a room for learning music with a focus about learning music as an older adult. A couple months ago, I took an ill-advised, quote-unquote, speed run through music. I found a music boot camp for video game music, and I reached out to the instructor. With about 2 weeks to the boot camp, I said, could I join? He said, do you have music background? I said, no. And he graciously offered to give me music theory lessons for the 2 weeks. And so I sped run the music theory lessons as fast as I could to prepare for the course. And then went through the course. It was a lot of work, but I kind of wear it as a little badge of honor because a lot of people, including my family, said you can't learn music as an older adult. Anyways, I didn't create this room to brag. The main reason I created it was because I've acknowledged that this is going to be a lifelong hobby. It's going to take a long time, especially since it's not my main focus. And I'm struggling right now to keep the momentum. For more context, I do have a keyboard and I use one of the apps to practice, 10, 15 minutes a day. And I'm starting to doubt whether this is actually a feasible approach. And I know there's the classical route about getting a nice and good music teacher, a nice piano teacher. I don't think I can commit to that. But I do wonder if, 15 minutes a day, does that accumulate over time? Has anyone done this before? And if so, has it been effective? Do they regret it? And so forth. So yeah, pretty much opening the room for that. It doesn't have to be piano focused. It doesn't have to be music theory focused. It doesn't have to be what's right or what's wrong, but I just wanted to see and share my story and get some like-minded individuals' opinions on it. Thanks.
Hey Joe, this is a great question. I went through a similar train of thought about a decade ago when I was 21 years old. So you can say fairly adult in terms of learning music, and followed a similar trajectory of taking a 3 month course on learning guitar. I say I've come a long way since then. To give a little bit of background, I have also played guitar on stage. I've been in different bands. And yes, just to answer your question, you can absolutely learn music as an older adult. I will give my 2 cents in the subsequent chits. So the way I look at it is music as a form of language, right? Like, so just like any other language, once you know the basics of how to form sentences, you don't think much what the sentence would be before saying it, right? You just say it. And as long as the sentence communicates what you want to, the conversation is understood and you can carry on from there. I would also say that it doesn't matter how much time you allot to it, as long as you are learning something. Going back to the language analogy, right? You can understand what I'm saying right now because you're familiar with the words I'm speaking. You know the sound of them on a deeper level. It makes sense to you, and you can immediately understand every word that I'm saying. Similarly, for musical notes, right? Your ears get trained to the notes, and once you can make out what different notes are and what notes go together, you are already there. Having said that, once in a while you would come across a word or in vocabulary which you might not be familiar with, right? So what do we do then? We look it up in the dictionary, which explains us the meaning of that word through the same language, but using words which are familiar to us, right? And then it suddenly makes sense. So the same goes with music. And just to conclude here, right? Like, no matter how much theory you learn, no matter how many scales you go through, it wouldn't really set in unless you grapple with it, get immersed in it. So I would say not necessarily a piano, but get any small instrument. Even a ukulele is fine. But you really need to uh, play with the instrument so that you can communicate eventually. There has to be some form of communication, right? Or some instrument of communication, pardon me. So I would say just take any small instrument and whatever you think you know, just try to go forward with it.
This is like a concept from the artist way, but I feel like the best music you'll make is when you're not trying to identify anything. You're not trying to put yourself in a certain category or sound a certain way, but you just start playing and you let whatever come out of you, and you don't label it as good or bad, and just having fun with it and treating the process like that.
This reminds me of the piece Giorgio by Moroder, which is on Daft Punk's Random Access Memories, probably the best song on that album, in my opinion. And they're having Giorgio, who was, I guess, the creator of the disco beat or made disco popular. He's talking about how he would mix everything and there was no concept of right or wrong or harmony or musically correct or whatnot. And the song is evolving as he's talking, and they mix in an orchestra right after a disco beat, right after a rock beat, right after et cetera, et cetera. And that's true creativity and art, not putting yourself in any boundaries just because nature has no boundaries.
Hey, Ashwin. Yeah, it's so interesting because the way I approached this whole journey was I did go through it like learning a new language. So my friends who learned from childhood said I went through hard mode. Like I went through theory first, and then now I'm kind of doing it mechanically. But as you alluded to earlier, like ear training, my ears are horrible. I'm a lot more tone deaf than I thought. I always thought I had a good ear, but that's not even close to true. Like I am pure garbage at playing the keyboard, but it's interesting. I approached music like I wanted to be a composer, and now I kind of want to get semi-decent with something like the piano. So what are your thoughts on approaching music as a composer versus trying to play an instrument? You know, I wanted to comment on this because I understand it, or I understood it, let's say, from a purely intellectual standpoint before. And what I realized before diving into a little bit more of the art side this year, like learning to draw a little and write, and now with the whole music thing, that's taken it to another level, just learning with other music students. It's really the feel. Like I understood it intellectually. Yes, your perfect work of art. It doesn't matter whether good or bad. It's how you feel about it. But I didn't really understand that till recently. And it's like, yeah, I don't really give a shit what people think. I'm going to make it because it just feels good and it feels right. And I've experienced that not really through myself in the class because the other students were so much better than me, but I could see it and feel it in their voice when they were presenting on their compositions. Through myself, the music has been in small bursts. I haven't been able to compose anything of substance, I would say. I'm not giving any credit to myself here, but it's true. An example would be journaling. Like some days I have a crazy desire or itch to journal, and it's like you're emptying your soul onto a page. And I didn't really understand that. Like I understand it from a scientific perspective. Like there's journals with evidence, but subjectively and anecdotally, that feel, it's just something about it. Your soul is getting poured out through your hands. And I would say, as a disclaimer for journaling, it's only when I handwrite. And it's interesting because my whole life I've been trained in the sciences and saw life so logically and technically, and it's been validating. Like you are validated in at least the past couple decades for that kind of work and that kind of knowledge. But after trying out these artistic hobbies, it's like I realized I was living life like an automaton. Like there's only so much with the knowledge we have right now anyways that, in my opinion, science can express how it feels or anything. And that's a bit of a long outstanding rant about how I discovered the artistical expression through. Only thing was personal skin in the game. Just got to try it. Can't really understand it till you try these things, even though there's probably no monetary reward, at least in the beginning.